Temperatures have soared in country and soldiers allowed to remove helmets and body armour so training could continue safely.
And this is once again a problem with the British Army, regular and reserves. You want them to be more lethal, but we can't train in the conditions we're going to be fighting in. Hydrate, eat, and you'll be able to stay in shape on exercise. Look at that bright white forehead now. Like it's not tactical and you're not training as if you're going to fight. Hello team, how's it going? Welcome back to a new video. We've got one from BFBS News here. Reservists must become more lethal to double Army's fighting power by 2027. Let's get into it. I'd be very interested to know what your comments are on this, so please comment below and let me know what you want to see in the future as well. Check out the original video in the description. It's you can always check it out there, but let's get into it and see what they've got to say.
What we are looking to do is to upskill the reservists. We're looking to make them more lethal, make them able to survive better. I think it's a real step change. There's been no better time to be a reservist than there is now.
One section! Watch and shoot! Anybody see?
Across NATO, nations are strengthening their forces. Here in Croatia, where 8th Battalion the Rifles are currently on exercise, conscription is being reintroduced. In the UK, the head of the British Army has pledged to double its fighting power in just 3 years.
So, a couple of things there then. As they said, they need to make the reservists more lethal. That should have been the priority from the beginning. One issue is the reserves weren't treated correctly. They weren't treated seriously. And the reservists, a lot of them don't take it seriously. That might annoy a lot of you, but a lot of them don't. They are reserves for a reason. They were the territorial army, okay? They should have been trained to the same standards that they are now from the beginning, but the problem is the standards dropped, okay? The reserves are not going to be as lethal as the regulars. They do it day in, day out, but they should be held to a high standard and should have been throughout. But the problem was they weren't. And that's the issue you've got now. Secondly, a lot of countries in NATO bringing back conscription. I've done a couple of videos on this now. I think the UK should possibly look at national service coming back, conscription. Not saying everyone, but they could do a bracket of those that don't want to do college. Go and check out my video for that. It's on my channel. But this is the problem. The standards dropped and now they're having to try and get them back. The funding dropped. Now they're having to try and get it back.
Commander of the 19th Light Brigade, the Army's first fully reservist brigade since the Second World War, says reservists will be critical in making this happen.
We do need reservists more than ever. The threat, the strategic context that we now find ourselves in, and all the geopolitical frictions and challenges that we see going across the world. The imperative has changed. Of course it's changed. Therefore, the training that we are delivering and the training that we are doing is far different. It is much more focused on a warfighting end state.
So she says we need them now more than ever. I'm not going to lie, 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, we needed them now more than ever. Right? A lot of regulars should be able to back me up on this, but Afghan, other exercises, Kenya were fully backfilled by reservists because the battalions, the regiments couldn't do it themselves. A lot of reservists went on Herrick and Iraq because the regulars couldn't handle the numbers that were being sent. Like I said, they let the standards drop, they let the funding drop, and that's the issue. Okay, they've always been needed, but because of Ukraine, Russia, the Middle East, everything that's going on, they're now starting to panic.
So yesterday we conducted a field operation, which is fighting in wooded areas. We destroyed and cleared 2 section strength of enemy, so that's roughly 20 people from that area. We've now moved into a harbour location. We're about to step off in about an hour and a half.
He needs to sort his cam cream out before they step off.
And conduct sort of an advanced contact on 3 further section strength, so again about a platoon size, so 30 odd people of enemy forces, and that'll be in clear open ground.
Figures 6, 9.
As they prepare for their own offensive, the reservists come under attack. Throughout the exercise, they've been working alongside the Croatians, honing their skills in conventional warfare, on the ranges, in the trenches and the kill house.
Rapid fire!
Temperatures have soared in country and soldiers
Where's
allowed
his
to
hat or
remove
helmet?
helmets and
Mr.
body
Sangaby's head, isn't
armour
he?
so training could continue safely.
Hang on, what's happened?
Body armour so
Fire!
temperatures have soared in country and soldiers allowed to remove helmets and body armour so training could continue safely.
And this is once again a problem with the British Army, regular and reserves. You want them to be more lethal, but we can't train in the conditions we're going to be fighting in. Hydrate, eat, right, and you'll be able to stay in shape on exercise. Look at that bright white forehead now. Like it's not tactical, and you're not training as if you're going to fight. Like, you're not going to make the reservists more lethal by going, oh, it's a little bit hot now, guys. Take off your body armor and helmet, and then we'll just carry on. And then if we do get to war, you're just going to suffer even more because you don't know what it's like to train in 30, 40 degree heat and fight in it for real and not be able to take it off. There's a whole videos about making them more lethal, and then you've got their helmets and body armor off. This is the issue with the army at the minute.
Exercises like this, of course, are not new to the reservists. This is the 10th iteration of Exercise Savastar here in Croatia. But in recent times, there does feel to have been a real increase in both intensity and importance of this kind of training. More emphasis is now being put on overseas exercises. Reservists, like regulars, need to be used to working with NATO allies. Every 2 years, troops from 19 Brigade will take part in Exercise Rhinoheart, this year held in Germany, operating at brigade level rather than just within their own units. And there is a focus on reducing mobilisation time by training reservists to a higher standard ahead of deployment.
Once again, should be training to a high standard throughout.
Their lethality is of course also about innovation, and 8 Rifles think they've found a new technique
look at that, Claire.
inspired by a very old idea.
Here we are.
Creating skirmish groups, or recce with teeth as they describe it, was suggested by one of their own riflemen, and they've been trialling it here in Croatia.
The basic tenet of it is a reconnaissance platoon, but with other capabilities bolted in, which gives the commander on the ground more tactical ability to manoeuvre. So there'll be 3 6-man teams within the skirmish group, each with a signaller, an RPAS operator, a machine gunner, recce, and the ability to fire javelin.
This is not, as it turns out, a new idea, but in fact a rather old one. Over 2 centuries ago, when the British were fighting the French in the Peninsular War, they used the same concept to create skirmishes on the edge of the main battle to lure the enemy in.
To be honest, it's been tested like 200 years
Look out
ago.
for a tash.
It worked, but now we're trying to reintroduce that. Everything basically skirmish is everything that's happening aside of a big battle. So these are the skirmishes. So we're supposed to like lure the enemies to our main lines, mainly by using a Barker rifle. Our rifles had a bigger range than the French muskets. So as the riflemen engaged French were trying to engage back, but they had to close in because they were out of range. So as we pulled back, firing at them, they closed in a way. Our baseline infantry was waiting for them, and we've been just luring them into ambush. That's how it's supposed to work, right?
It's working really well on Savastar because we have a Croatian recce squad of 6 who are learning from us and we are learning from them, and we're combining together the ways of working as we shake out on Exercise Savastar. So yeah, super pleased that the Croatians have provided us with their recce platoon.
So the deployment so far has been mega. I love my job. The reason I love being the RSM of the 8th Battalion is because I get to work with interesting people.
Yeah, they're withdrawing!
I've got platoon commanders who are doctors. They finish working, in surgery. They then finish shift, come and get changed out of their surgery gear, place on uniform, and then come and play soldiers with me on the weekend, and then go back to work on a Sunday night. I find that quite inspiring.
And there's another issue there. Play soldiers. You're not playing soldiers, and this is the whole problem with it. Right, he's right, you get to work with interesting people, and hats off to him for being in surgery on Friday and then going to the reserves and then going back Sunday night. Fair play, giving up your weekends, okay, that could be your downtime. You're not playing soldiers, okay? You're actually training to be the reserve force if it kicks off. That's what you're there for. And the issue is they'll be picking up their kit, but they won't have the correct kit. When I was an instructor at Purbright as a section commander, we would also train the reserves as well. They would turn up with half their webbing missing, they wouldn't have water bottles, they wouldn't have enough clothing, they wouldn't have the correct boots, they wouldn't have magazines, they would be missing all sorts. In unit, I guarantee these guys haven't got enough sights, they haven't got enough NVGs, they haven't got enough webbing, they haven't got enough body armour for the reservists serving within there. So it's all good picking up that kit. Majority of kit the reserves buy, I guarantee they buy it themselves. Like the kit they have, I guarantee they buy a lot of it. Even the regulars sometimes struggle to get enough kit. Vertis took years to get in, and regulars were still struggling. So reserves weren't getting it. Increase funding, increase training. You should have never dropped it in the first place.
The variety of professions within the battalion, I think that's what makes us the unarmed reserve unit special.
Amongst the ranks here in Croatia, they have a Scottish botanist, an Irish postman and a former sheep farmer, and they insist they are ready and willing to go should they be deployed.
I think just the way not just the British Army goes, but other militaries across the world are depending more on reserves. It makes sense.
With what's happened in the last few years, obviously in Eastern Europe, I think it's really important now that the reserves has a focus and is the battle ready to be able to support the regulars, and that has changed massively from when I first joined, when Afghanistan and the last Toral tours were finishing off, to now.
We want it. We want to contribute meaningfully. We don't give up our weekends and training nights and things like that to just sort of be there in a holding pattern. We want to contribute. It's of vital importance, and the reservists are ready for it.
Hannah King, BFBS Forces News.
And most probably a lot of them do want to contribute, but from my experience doing 16 years in the regulars, a lot of them didn't want to. Even when training the recruits, okay, the potential reservists, you couldn't speak to them, you couldn't treat them the same as the regular, because they would just get upset and walk out. So you had to treat them differently. So you couldn't train them as a high standard. They couldn't be as lethal, because if you upset them, they just walked out, and you were told don't upset them because they may walk out and we're going to lose numbers. You know, they only have to do, 27 days a year? And then they get a bounty at the end of it. After they've served, 6-7 years, they're getting like £1,500 at the end of the tax year just for doing 27 days a year and completing their mats. Like, it's good to have the incentives, but it's not enough to keep them in date. Yeah, they've got to do so many weekends a month and their 2-week annual count, but they don't have to do the full 2 weeks. It's not enough if you want them to be lethal. Fair play to them for doing it and turning up, and especially the ones that really want to do it and they really want to deploy. But it is not enough. And the majority of them, from what I've experienced, they don't really want to be there. They're just there to say they're there. They just want a little bit of extra money. Their kit's not done as highly as it should be, but you can't moan at them about it because they may leave. They don't have the correct kit. They're not really fussed, but there is a small percentage that are. But I think if the standards had never dropped in the first place, if the funding had never dropped in the first place, it wouldn't be like that. There'd be more willing people being held to a high standard. But because they're worried about losing them, and no one really, it's just a load of rubbish, you know, their standards should never drop. Finally, they're doing something about it. I don't know how they're actually going to do it. I think they need to massively increase funding. There are a lot of opportunities, I believe, for the reservists. When I was in, there was always reservists going on adventure training, going on overseas exercises, ops, etc. Their opportunities are there. People saying, you know, things are getting cut for the reserve. Things are getting cut for the regulars. It's fully across the armed forces is the issue. The regulars and reserves should be held to the same high standards. The same percentage of funding should be put into them. They should all have the correct kit, all correct weaponry, munitions, a lot. Okay, but that's a guarantee that's not what they're doing. Straight away proven, helmet and body armour off, but carry on doing your section attack because it's hot. You're not training to the standard you're going to be fighting at. That's the issue. Please let us know what your thoughts are. I'll be very interested. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.